Checking your Classic 107 weather. Current temperature in the city still minus 17 degrees. With the wind, it's going to feel like minus 19. This afternoon, it's going to get up to minus 15, but the wind's going to pick up a little bit as well. It's going to feel like minus 27 degrees. So if you want to stay warm, maybe stay inside with the Winnipeg Reel-to-Reel Film Festival that's happening. Starts February 16th and runs to February 22nd. In the studio with me this morning, I have the festival's artistic director. His name is Paul Boge. He's not just the festival's director. He's a busy man, I tell you. He's a screenwriter, director, producer, author, speaker, and he's a professional engineer as well. He works for a company called Boge and Boge, consulting engineer, and he works in the industrial sector. He's written 5 books, including 3 biographies, and he's written, directed, and produced 2 films, Among Thieves and Espresso Junction. So he actually found time to come in this morning to chat about the Winnipeg Reel-to-Reel Film Festival. Good morning, Paul.
Thanks a million, Michael. Thanks for having me here.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. You know, obviously you've got a very busy schedule, not just with this festival happening, but with all the amazing things that you do. Before we talk about the festival, that's what we really want to focus on. Tell us a bit about your background, how you got into this, what you're doing now with all these different things, and also why and when you started this film festival.
I always had a love for writing, so especially when I was going to Maple Leaf School here in Winnipeg, my teacher Richard Burkett was a really, really big promoter of the writing that I was doing, and so I won a Young Authors Contest and just had a real passion for writing. And when I finished high school, went off to Europe for a year and came back and went through engineering, one of the ways to help relieve all the pressure you face when you're studying engineering was to write screenplays. And so
is that what it is, really?
Yeah. So it helps to just kind of shift focus, shift attention, and just love getting into screenwriting. And so some friends of mine here from Winnipeg, we shot a couple of movies and then got into to book writing. And one of the films that I had directed wasn't in the Sundance Film Festival, but it was being given an award at the same time as the Sundance Film Festival in the same location. And so I was walking around Sundance. I was just impressed upon me, like, hey, what if we did a film festival in Winnipeg? And I always had a real desire to show a film festival where everybody could come. It would be like cool, clean, compelling films. So not like, just cheesy schlock, but you'd have like really compelling films that would interest people of all age brackets. So whether you're a kid, whether you're a teenager, whether you're a senior, something that everybody could come and enjoy together. And so that was the birth of the Winnipeg Reel-to-Reel Film Festival.
Now, the Winnipeg Reel-to-Reel Film Festival, it was 2011, I think it began, right? So we're in the 5th year. I guess you could probably say there's a theme, I guess, like an overall theme running through the film festival. What would you...
We're really big on having a look at the human journey. And so throughout the film festival, we've explored films. There are some action films, but by and large, they are films that people can really do some deep thinking about what's happening in life, why are we here, where are we going, what are some of the challenges that we collectively face on this planet. And so we get films literally from around the world. And so the emphasis of the festival is to try and find films that would be both interesting and compelling, because sometimes you find films that are, human interest, but they're boring or they don't really grab your attention. But each film is specifically chosen to say, somebody somewhere in the world has either suffered or put something on the line, or they've really given of themselves to help somebody else. And that was of real interest to us.
It's kind of refreshing, films with positive images, because we're in these days with media and news and that kind of stuff, we're always exposed to negative images and negative ideas. And,
exactly. Yeah. Because what happens is that because there's so much competition for media these days, one of the ways that producers are trying to attract an audience is to shock an audience. But if you look at the best in the world, if you look at Steven Spielberg, like Bridge of Spies, like all of his films, Schindler's List, Munich, all these films, he is just, for me, the most brilliant director because he's never resorted to that. He's always tried to find a way to say, no, if we find a great character and a cool story, the audience will come, and he never loses.
That's true. Yeah. So the festival gets underway February 16th, runs till February 22nd. Give us a sense of what we can expect for this festival. Maybe some of the highlights. There's a lot of, there's feature films, feature documentaries, short films, animated films. There's such a wide variety of things. Yeah. So we don't have time to go through them all, but pick some of the highlights that you think, you really want to let people know about.
One of my favorite films is Moly, and this is based on a true story. It's a documentary. He was a 6-year-old Kenyan boy who was brutally abused by his dad, and he wakes up one morning and his family has totally abandoned him. And he goes from hut to hut begging for food. He gets kicked out of school because he can't afford to be there. But then as a teenager, he starts a little taxi company, and that gets bigger and bigger. And then he branches out to oil and gas distribution, property management, real estate, insurance. And this guy with a great education becomes a multimillionaire. He knows the president of Kenya on a first-name basis, and he has absolutely everything. But then one day he decides to sell everything he has to go into slums and rescue street kids. And he's rescued over 10,000 kids to date. And so he's going to be at the film festival on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday next week to talk and answer questions about his documentary, Moly, which is the Canadian premiere happening at our festival.
Canadian premiere. Wow. And there's also a book that you wrote as well.
Yeah, Father to the
About
Fatherless, the Charles Moly story is a book that I wrote when I was teaching physics and math at his home for street kids about 10 years ago. And so I was finishing off a mining job in Thompson, Manitoba, where I was working with Inco up there with our company, and now called Valet. And then I always had this heart to go to Africa and just help kids and do something. So my brother had been to his home a few years earlier. I just emailed him out of the blue and says, hey, I'd like to come and help. And so I went to Moly Children's Family and taught physics and math there. And he said, oh, I hear that you're a writer. I'd like you to write the story of my life. And Michael, I almost fell off my chair. I says, like, you're a famous guy. Get a famous author to do it. But he says, nope, you're the guy. And so we sat there and wrote his book. Wow. And that book went on to become a Globe and Mail bestseller, and we use all the profits to help the kids in Kenya. So it's a pretty cool cause, and we're just really happy to be part of it.
Well, and exciting to have him coming to town, actually.
Awesome.
Right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Could you imagine having a family with 10,000 kids?
Yeah. No kidding. So also, I noticed there's a film called McFarland, starring Kevin Costner.
Yeah.
I've seen that one.
It's awesome.
It is a really good film.
It really is. And it's one of the questions. What I love about that film, it asks the question: are you willing to grow where you're planted? We have this idea sometimes that life has to be the American dream. I have to achieve more and get more, and I think this film, what it does, and Disney does such a good job of this, is to say, maybe life didn't work the way you expected it to work, but wherever you're at, you can grow and be planted there and do great things. And so Kevin Costner plays this rah football coach. He wants to be an awesome football coach, but he gets booted out, and the only job he can get is down in a largely Hispanic city.
Small town,
yeah. And then he has to become a running coach, which he knows nothing about. But it's just how he loves these guys. And so it's a good question for us to ask ourselves. It doesn't matter if our dreams did or did not work out. The question is, are we willing to grow where we're planted right now?
Yeah, and the thing I found about that film, too, is it's about family, and it's about support, and it's about having people around you that encourage you and, don't try to bring you down. They try to lift you up. And that's what I found with that film as well. His family loved it there, and they were very encouraging and said, we can make the best of it.
Yeah.
And they eventually did. And it's a really heartwarming story, for sure.
It really is. Yeah. And it encourages us, too, right? Because if you have the family and support system around you to encourage you, then anything's possible.
Yeah. I'm in the studio with Paul Boge. He is the artistic director of the Winnipeg Reel-to-Reel Film Festival. That's one of the things that he does. Anyway, he's got that hat on today. Well, no hat, actually, but that's the hat he's wearing today.
I might need him for this weather outside today.
We're in the studio talking about the Winnipeg Reel-to-Reel Film Festival that starts on February 16th, runs till February 21st. What about there's a lot of documentaries I noticed as well. You've got Dukale's Dream, you've got Human Harvest. Tell us maybe a little bit about some of the documentaries you've chosen.
Dukale's Dream is an awesome story. It stars Hugh Jackman, who's Wolverine in the X-Men series, and he's got a real heart for poor people. And so he went with World Vision Australia, he went to Ethiopia, and he went to go visit a coffee farmer. And at that point, his name is Dukale, the coffee farmer. He didn't actually even know who Hugh Jackman was. And so Hugh Jackman went there to help, to harvest with him, to learn what do you do, how do you do it. And once this guy figured out who Hugh Jackman was, he started crying. He couldn't believe that somebody this famous would come all the way around the world to try and help him. It's a staggering story, Michael. And Hugh Jackman was so impacted by that when he went back to New York, he started his own fair trade coffee company, and all the money goes to help farmers and that. So it really is a cool story about how do you love your neighbor as yourself? How do you care for people around you? And especially for a superstar like Hugh Jackman and guys like Charles Moly, they have everything, but they choose to help other people. And Human Harvest is beyond staggering. It's a story that's a true story taking place in China, where there is the Falun Gong. It's a religious group in China, and many of them are being killed for the purposes of having their organs harvested and sold for people who unsuspectingly think they're just getting an organ transplant. And so millions of dollars are being made on this. And so Winnipeg lawyer David Mattis, who has just done an incredible job, he takes us through how does this happen and how do we try and combat this. So it's one of the things in the festival, we try and bring documentaries where things like, you may not have heard about this or may not have understood why this is happening, but it opens the eyes as to what's really going on out there. And David will be there.
He's going to be around.
Yeah,
That's right.
It's awesome. Yeah.
So we've just touched on a few of them. There's so many different films. How can people get more information, tickets, etc.?
You can visit us at winnipegfilmfestival.com. And so all the trailers are online, so you can go through it and see in advance, what you want to do. The program's on there as well. Tickets are available at the door. Kids 12 and under are free. So your entire family for the entire week can come for a total of $25. Or one person can come for one day for $5. So we try and make it as cheap as possible. And there's like chili and hot dogs and stuff there as well. So
wow, amazing. So I mean, when this cold weather, perfect time,
Stay
you
inside.
can just be inside. And all of the films take place at the church, right?
yes, at 1315 Gateway Road, North Kelowna, MB. And so all the films are there, and all the proceeds go to help inner city rescue missions activities
Fantastic.
here.
What an amazing project, I mean,
Cool.
great films, and obviously they have a great theme to them. So it's really, really refreshing to see that. And thank you for coming in this
Thanks
morning.
so much, Michael. Thanks for having me here.
Really a pleasure.
And I love your station. I listen to you guys all the time. I absolutely love it.
I didn't pay him to say that. I promise you.
I
didn't
really
pay him
do. It's awesome.
Thank you, Paul. I've been in the studio with Paul Boge. He's the artistic director of the Winnipeg Reel to Reel Film Festival. You heard him. You can go to their website, Winnipeg Reel to Reel.
Winnipeg Film Festival.
WinnipegFilmFestival.com. I'll get it right. WinnipegFilmFestival.com. And you can get all the information there about the films, and definitely worth checking out.